My name is Jamin. I'm your first friend in Alaska, and today we're going to be talking about what's going on in the Anchorage real estate market, looking at the residential, or single family, I should say, condo and multifamily market. Before we do that, though, do make sure you give this video a like, subscribe, and let's jump into it. First thing we want to look at is what's going on in the single family residential classification in Anchorage. And what we're seeing right now is this time last year there were 411 properties available on the market. Now it's 387. So seeing a little bit of a dip in the inventory. Looking historically though, we would normally see anywhere from about 900 to about 1,000, about 50. So yes, the inventory is lower compared to the year before, but historically it's even lower. Next thing we see is that this time last year there were about 252 properties that sold, and this year it's 273. So even though the inventory there's less of it now than there was before, we in fact are seeing that the number of properties that are selling actually is increasing a little bit, and that's a promising sign. It is an indication that there is still plenty of demand for single family properties in Anchorage. Next thing we see is that the average sold price year to date went from about $510,000 this time last year to about $529,000 this year, which means it's increased by about 3.6% for the year to date. Now, that's still increasing at a pretty good rate. That's down from where it was the year before, because before, like this time last year, it was increasing at a rate of about 6.2%. And the year before that, it was about 5.2%. And the year before that, 7.6%. So we're actually seeing, well, you know what? We'll save all that for the summary, and we'll kind of break this down for you and kind of tell you what I'm seeing. Next thing we see is that the inventory for condos in Anchorage has actually increased a little bit as well, because we see that this time last year there's about 124 condos available on the market. Right now it's about 167. So we're seeing a bit of an increase for the number of condos on the market compared to the year before, which is great. I'll certainly take it. Historically though, we would see anywhere from about 450 upwards of about 500. So we are seeing an increase, yes, but again, historically, we're still nowhere near close to where we used to be. Next, we see the number of condos that have actually sold went from about, I'm going to just look at this directly here, about 84 this time last year to 78 this year. Okay, so we're seeing a bit of a dip there in the number of condos that are actually selling. If you look kind of at the different months here, you can see that there's some months where a lot more sold, and there are other months where it's slightly less. So I think we're still slightly above from where we were this time last year to date for the number of sold units, but that's what we're seeing right at the moment. Next, we see that the average sold price went from about $278,000 this time last year to about $290,000 this year, which means we've seen an increase of approximately 4% year to date for the average sold price for condos. So pretty, I'll take that, because prior to COVID, honestly, you were kind of happy just to break even. And even if you had to lose a little bit, it was better just to kind of be out of it and be done, is kind of the situation a lot of condo owners found themselves in. Okay, let's go and take just a really quick break here. I just want to make sure you folks are aware that I do host a podcast called The Alaskan Journey. I interview people who have recently moved up here. We're trying a slightly different format where we're just incorporating this. We're not changing anything out. We're going to continue doing that, where I interview people who've just moved up here or lived up here for years. But we're also going to try incorporating something that's a little bit different, where you can actually essentially be the host of the program, come in and ask me questions, because if you've got a question about something, there's a really good chance there's a lot of other people who have the exact same question. If that's something you're interested in, do feel free to reach out to me. If we're not already in contact, then feel free to go to my website. Link for that is in the description section down below. Register and make sure you put podcast in the little comment section you have to write some stuff in there so I know what we're talking about, and make sure you include your phone number also. Okay, let's go and finish up today's market update. Now, switching gears and talking about the multifamily part of the real estate market, we see that this time last year there were 97 multifamily properties available, and this year it's 99. So that's a slight increase, not a whole lot to write home about, but it's still increasing by just a little bit. Normally we'd see anywhere from, I think it's like 180 to about 240 multifamily properties available. So that is an increase, but we're still a long ways off from where we were historically. Next, we see the number of multifamily properties that are actually selling went from about 28 this time last year to 24 this year. Now, looking historically, we would expect to see anywhere from about, we'll say about 30 to about 36 properties that are selling. So that is down a little bit, but in proportion to the amount of inventory that's not available anymore, I would accept that, honestly, that we have a pretty proportional amount of demand. Probably, if anything, I was going to say a proportional amount of demand in relation to the amount of inventory we have, but taking into consideration the amount of supply that's not there, I'd say we actually have a higher proportion of demand to the inventory than what's available right now. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Let's move on to the next slide, though. Next, we see the average sold price for multifamily properties went from about $587,000 this time last year to about $619,000 this year, with the average sold price of being at about 5.5%. So this is not a huge surprise, honestly. The multifamily market continues to be pretty healthy in Anchorage, and the best thing I can say there is just make sure that your numbers actually do balance out. Just because it's multifamily does not necessarily mean that it's going to be a good investment. Well, let's go and talk just overall summary here. So if I'm a buyer and I'm looking at this market, I'm starting to feel kind of better about it. I am not expecting to see the market tumble anytime in the near future. So if you're someone that's been sitting on the fence for 5 years at this point, waiting for the market to take a tumble, and then you'll just swoop in and be the smart one that takes advantage of everything, I think you're probably going to keep waiting for the foreseeable future. There are talks about reducing the interest rates, and it sounds like they are actually going to do that. I don't know if it's going to be enough to create a whole lot of demand all of a sudden, because here's the thing, we have low inventory because everyone's got low interest rates and they don't want to leave what they have to go find something else. Now, there's a theory that says once we drop the interest rates down to somewhere in the 5s, then all those sellers will get shook loose and they'll be willing to venture out and try to buy something else and put what they currently own on the market to sell. The problem I see in that scenario is that we are creating one house worth of inventory, yes, but we're also creating one new buyer that has to buy also. So it's kind of a net neutral, honestly. You're really not coming out that far ahead. I think you might see some changes just in the different price ranges, and that's going to be very dependent, but I'm not really seeing this interest rates coming down by itself fixing the entire inventory problem. And as long as the inventory remains low, I'm not seeing the market taking a tumble anytime soon. I see that the rate at which things are increasing might decrease just for the single family properties, and I take that for what it is, but I wouldn't really expect us to take a tumble anytime soon. For condos, the big thing is just know that this has been a price range this has been a asset class that's been hard to sell in years past. So if you're considering selling a condo, it's time to get after it and to make it happen. But this has been your market update. Thanks for hanging out with me. We'll see you next time.